Huge oil tanks and refineries loomed like cities in the oily, fragrant air. "I'm glad we got out of there," said Luann. "Let's play some more mystery programs now." We zoomed through Beaumont over Trinity River at Liberty and straight for Houston, and now Neil got talking about his Houston days in 1947. "Hunky, Hunky, I look for him everywhere I go and I never find him. He used to get us so hung up in Texas here. We'd drive in with Bill for groceries and Hunky'd disappear. We'd have to go looking for him in every shooting gallery in town." We were entering Houston. "Man, he'd be blasting with every mad cat he could find. One night we lost him and took him to a hotel room. We were supposed to bring ice back to Joan because her food was rotting. It took us 2 days to find Hunky. I got hung up myself. I gunned shopping women in the afternoon right here, downtown, supermarkets." We flashed by in the empty night and found a real gone, dumb girl who was out of her mind and just wandering out, trying to steal an orange. She was from Wyoming. I took her back to the room. Bill was drunk. Alan was writing poetry. Hunky didn't show up till midnight at the Jeep. We found him sleeping in the back seat. He said he took about 5 sleeping pills. Man, if my memory could only work the way my mind works, I could tell you every detail of the things we did. But we know time. Everything takes care of itself. I could close my eyes and this car would take care of itself. In the empty Hudson streets, at 4 o'clock in the morning, a motorcycle kid suddenly roared through all the bespangled and bedecked, with glittering buttons, visor, slick black jacket, a Texas poet of the night. A girl gripped on his back like a papoose, hair flying, onward going, singing Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, and sometimes Kansas City, and sometimes Antone. Aha! They pinpointed out of sight. "Wow, dig that gone gal on his belt, yeah." Neil tried to catch up with him. "Now, wouldn't it be fine if we could all get together and have a real, going, goof bang together with everybody sweet and fine and agreeable and no hassles? But we know time." He bent to it, and he pushed the car. And beyond Houston, his energies great as they gave out. And I drove. Rain began to fall just as I took the wheel, and now we were out on the great Texas plain, and as Neil said, you drive and you drive and you drive, and you're still in Texas tomorrow night. The rain lashed down. I drove myself through a rickety little cow town, a muddy main street, found myself in a dead end. "Hey, what do I do?" They were both asleep. I turned and crawled back through town. There wasn't a soul in sight, not a single light. Suddenly, a horseman in a raincoat appeared in my headlamps. It was the sheriff. He had a 10-gallon hat drooping in the torrent. Which way to Austin?" He told me politely, and I started off. Outside town, I suddenly saw 2 headlamps flaring directly at me in the lashing rain. Whoops! I thought I was on the wrong side of the road. I eased right and found myself rolling in the mud. I rolled back to the road, and still the headlamps came straight for me. At the last minute, I realized the other driver was on the wrong side of the road, and they didn't know it. I swerved at 30 into the mud. It was a flat, no ditch. Thank God. The offending car backed up in the downpour, and 4 sullen field workers snuck from their chores to brawl in drinking shacks. All white shirts and dirty brown arms sat looking at me dumbly in the night. The driver was as drunk as the lot. He said, "Which way to Houston?" I pointed my thumb back. I was thunderstruck in the middle of the thought that they had done this on purpose just to ask directions. As a panhandler advances on you straight up the sidewalk to bar your way. They gazed ruefully at the floor of their car where empty bottles rolled and clanked away, and I started the car. It was stuck in the mud a foot deep. I sighed in the Texas rainy wilderness. "Neil," I said. "Wake up." What? "We're stuck in the mud." "What happened?" I told him. He swore up and down, and we put on old shoes and sweaters and barged out into the car in driving rain. I put my back on the rear fender and lifted and heaved. Neil stuck chains under the swishing wheels. In a minute, we were bespotted with mud. We woke up Luann to these horrors and made her gun the car while we pushed. And the tormented Hudson heaved, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly it jolted out, went skidding across the road, and there weren't any cars for miles. Luann pulled it up just in time as we ran in, and that was that. And the work had taken 30 minutes.
We were soaked and miserable. I fell asleep all caked with mud, and in the morning, when I woke up, the mud was solidified, and outside there was snow. We were near Fredericksburg, Texas, in the high plains. It was the worst winter in Texas and Western history. January 1949, when cattle perished like flies in great blizzards and snow fell on San Francisco and LA. We were all miserable. We wished we were back in New Orleans with Al Hinkle, who at the very moment was sitting on a Mississippi levee talking to old men with white hair instead of looking for an apartment and a job, typical of him. Luann was driving, and Neil was sleeping.